What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been.
Conscious leadership is a practice. It's not a personality. It's not reserved for the contemplative or the soft-spoken. It's available to every leader who chooses to slow down long enough to see it. Conscious leaders pay attention to their patterns. They notice what's surfacing in their emotions, their bodies, their tone of voice. They ask, where did that come from? Instead of simply reacting. Welcome back to The Leadership Wound. I'm your host, Amanda Rohr, and founder of Authentically You Coaching. And we're in part 3 of our series called Follow First, How Authentic Leaders Are Formed. In episode 19, we explored how great leadership begins in proximity, not with a platform. And in episode 20, we asked, who are you really following? And how those hidden influences are shaping our leadership. But today's question pulls it all together to ask the question, are you chasing the platform? Or are you following the presence? Let's talk about what happens when we get all that backwards and how we find our way back to authentic leadership that serves not only those we are leading, but also our true nature and potential as humans. There's something deeply human about wanting to be seen, to be heard, to matter, and there's nothing wrong with it. But often our desire for it can have us chasing the platform, and it leads to a desire for significance that quickly morphs into a hunger for visibility, performance, or approval. But the truth is, desire isn't the problem. We all desire to be known and fully loved. Disconnection is the problem. When we build our leadership on external outcomes instead of inner alignment, we start relying on platforms to tell us who we are, instead of the presence of the one who already has told us. Recently, I returned to the story in Exodus 33, where Moses is offered success, but without the presence of God. God says essentially, go ahead, take the promised land, but my presence won't go with you. You are a rebellious and stubborn people. If I did go with you, I would surely destroy you because of my holiness. And Moses replies, if your presence does not go with us, don't send us up there. It's not that he doesn't want the destination, the promise. He just doesn't want it without intimacy. He doesn't want the land flowing with milk and honey without the presence of the one who gives the milk and honey. What strikes me about this moment is that Moses had the platform. He had the opportunity to take the limelight. He was the recognized leader, the miracle worker, the voice of God's people. But none of that mattered to him if the presence of God wasn't with him. If I had the opportunity to meet anyone from the past, it would be Moses. He had all the fame and power and did not let it go to his head. He understood that the real gift, the real promise, was God himself, not the tangible, material things of God that he could offer, but the presence of God himself. That's what real, conscious leadership sounds like. And the truth is, we are nothing without the Spirit of God, his presence, which fills our breath and gives us life. Leadership without presence might check all the boxes, but it doesn't change lives, and it slowly erodes our own. Far too many people, far too many churches, and far too many ministries living and leading without tapping into the presence of God that dwells within them. We start reacting instead of discerning. We numb out instead of listening. We strive instead of trusting when we try to live this life without the presence of God. I've seen this. I've lived this. When the focus shifts from presence to performance, from internal validation to external applause, we begin to lead from unconscious patterns. And the scariest part, we don't even know we're doing it. There was a season in my life when I followed a leader whose external image was polished, successful, and celebrated by many. They had the platform, and from a distance, everything looked aligned. But underneath the surface, there was a hunger for visibility, a need to be impressive, a resistance to introspection. And those of us under that leadership felt it, even if we couldn't name it at the time. There was fear and confusion, a sense that emotional honesty wasn't safety, because this leader was not as self-aware as they thought they were. And I get it. To some extent, we all have blind spots until someone reveals them to us, and we're not blind anymore. I like to say that we are innocent. We don't know what we don't know until we do, until it's revealed to us, until we are confronted by either God, a trusted other, or even those that we don't trust, but deep down we know they're revealing something true about us. Once we have enlightenment, we are no longer ignorant of the truth. And that is the moment of truth for us, when obedience is the only next right step. Because if we keep ignoring it, we are no longer innocent of it. At first, I didn't realize how much this particular leader was shaping me until I began noticing the tension in my own body, the pressure to produce, the silence around vulnerability. It's not just that this leader was unhealthy or didn't know how to process the demands and pressures of leadership in a healthy way. It was that I had unconsciously adopted a leadership model that looked successful but wasn't safe. And even when I resisted it, I was still being formed by it. Because here's the thing, just resisting what shaped you doesn't heal it. Sometimes we think that because we don't want to become like someone, we'll be safe. We distance ourselves from their behavior, their personality, their choices. We vow to lead differently. But avoidance is still a form of alignment, because it breeds fear and resentment. And fear and resentment do not create freedom. They actually create reactivity, reaction, not reflecting, not healing, not wholeness. The truth is, what we resist without replacing it will still form us in the dark. Maybe you have sworn you'd never be controlling like your former boss. So you go to the other extreme and avoid boundaries altogether, leading with passivity instead of presence. Or maybe you watched a parent suppress their emotions, so you become overly expressive or emotionally fused, not realizing you're still reacting to the original wound, just from the opposite side of the spectrum. Or maybe you hated how a precious leader demanded constant performance and praise, so now you're hesitant to celebrate or affirm anyone's growth because you don't want to manipulate like they did. It's the same wound, just wearing a different outfit. The truth is, if we're not aware of it, we'll follow by default. It will just take on another shape. And if we don't pause to become conscious of what's driving us, we'll unintentionally pass on the very dynamics we swore we'd never repeat. That's the cost of unconscious leadership. It allows what is unhealed in us to become unexamined in others. So here's the invitation. Don't just resist. Reorient. Don't just say, not that. Ask, then what? Conscious leadership is a practice. It's not a personality. It's not reserved for the contemplative or the soft-spoken. It's available to every leader who chooses to slow down long enough to see it. Conscious leaders pay attention to their patterns. They notice what's surfacing in their emotions, their bodies, their tone of voice. They ask, where did that come from? Instead of simply reacting. They know that inner resistance alone isn't freedom. Freedom comes from intention, from presence, from choosing what aligns, not just avoiding what doesn't. Because resisting a voice that hurt you is not the same as reclaiming your own. And rejecting a pattern doesn't automatically create a new one. This is where spiritual formation meets emotional intelligence. This is where leadership becomes transformational, not just functional. That kind of leadership, it's slow, quiet, often unseen. It's not built on a stage, a platform. It's built in a sacred space, a holy place, a place where you and God are working these things out, where presence speaks louder than performance. So let's just do that. Let's pause together now. Take a deep breath. Exhale it out. And ask yourself these 4 questions. Where have I been leading unconsciously? Where have I been reacting to something painful without replacing it with something true? What voices are still whispering in the background of my leadership decisions? And where am I ready to return? To presence, to peace, to alignment with my authentic self? Granted, these questions take courage and a lot of honesty, but they're the only way forward because you weren't created to lead or live from just survival. You were created to lead and live from your soul. I purposely make these podcasts short so that your head doesn't just get filled with knowledge, but that what you hear really sifts its way down into your heart. So take time today, either re-listen to this podcast again, write down those questions, but take the time. Be a student of yourself. Dare to be radically self-aware of what is going on internally. This conversation doesn't wrap up the series yet because there's still one more episode to come. Next time, I'll walk you through a practical framework I've created called the Way of Metanoia. It's a rhythm that weaves together everything we've explored in the series about how authentic leaders are formed. Because this isn't just about theory. It's not just knowledge meant to stay in your head. It's about creating space to live differently, day after day, to lead differently, and to return to what is real. But before we get there, I want to leave you with this. So much of leadership today is built around presence, but not the kind that transforms us. We're taught to perfect our stage presence, to curate an online presence, and to maintain a public presence that looks polished and impressive. But what about the kind of presence that anchors us? What about God's presence? The kind that quiets our souls from striving and calls us back to stillness. Let's follow the lead of Moses, who was practicing what it means to follow God, and say, if your presence doesn't go with us, we don't want to go there either. In other words, I don't want to take one more step if you're not in it, God. So here's your invitation. Take 10 minutes this week and get quiet. Put down the platform, turn off the noise, and ask, where have I been leading without presence? Where have I been performing instead of aligning? And what would it look like to return? And if you're not sure how to begin, that's okay. That's what coaching is for. As a coach, I walk with leaders who are ready to reconnect with their own voice and with the presence of the one who called them there in the first place. I help you name what's driving you, discern what's missing, and begin to build rhythms that align with your deepest values and not just your biggest responsibilities. So if something in this conversation stirred something with you, I'd love to support you in your next step. Visit my newly branded website, authenticleadershipcollective.com, that encompasses all that I'm doing in this season. There you can explore all the different coaching options I have, book a free 30-minute growth plan consult, or check out the free morning meditation, a short but grounding resource to align you as you begin your day. And be sure to tune in next week for the final episode in this series, where I'll walk through the way of metanoia, a simple yet powerful rhythm to transform the way you think, lead, and live. Until next time, lead like you.